One of the most important concepts of the game is the idea of giving space around neutral objectives. Now, very often when a dragon will spawn, people will logically walk over to the dragon and start to attack it. But by doing this, you're essentially giving up all of the space that you currently control without a contest, and on champions with skill shot abilities, this is a shame. Look at this replay of a Dragon Soul contest, for example. Red team right now controls all of the space in the river between mid lane and Dragon Pit, and blue team, they can't see anything. Now pay attention to our Ahri player and note what she does. She starts as far up as possible as she can. She throws her skill shot from the bush and walks backwards. Now she moves back to the second bush and sets up another defense, throwing spells before getting pushed off, but by the time the blue team take all the space to make it up to the Dragon Pit, they've essentially lost thousands of health on their main tank, all before the fight even begins. By giving space like this, Ahri is making use of one of the most important micro-mechanics that you will ever learn. When throwing skill shots at an opponent who is running towards you, you effectively have an increased range with that skill shot. Since even if the enemy is outside of the ability's max range when you throw it, they will step into its effective range by the time the ability travels to them. The opposite is of course true when running away from enemies, which is what you'll be doing. When running away, you will have more time to step outside of an ability's range, even if it was initially thrown at you when you were in range. Now sadly, training dummies in League don't throw skill shots, so you can't practice this particular skill in the League client itself, which is why I'll be using the Skill Gap application to demonstrate. Now when playing their dodging trainer, the enemies do throw skill shots, so you can actually practice this skill. Take note that every single time I see an enemy come towards me, I immediately click backwards, which allows me to hit an ability on them before they even become a threat to me. You'll see I'm repeatedly moving backwards every time a new threat appears, which allows me most of the time to hit an ability before they even manage to throw theirs. And when they do throw an ability, the backward step that I do is enough to get me out of the range of the enemy ability when they throw it, while still hitting my own, or at the bare minimum, giving me enough time to react and dodge to the side in order to not get hit. Now, just for the fun of the game, I decided to try play around by using the opposite advice, always running towards an enemy, and as a result of that, I took a lot more skill shots directly to the face. Skill shots that should be dodgeable, like this Ezreal Q, hit me in the face because I just don't have enough time or space to react and move out of the way in time. This was surprisingly fun to play around with and test on. The Skill Gap application is working as a genuine asset for me in the creation of this video, allowing me to finally create a video about micro skills that I've wanted to make for months now, so a huge thanks to them for sponsoring this video, and a link to download their app will be in the video description. Now this is the first of a couple champion micro mechanics that I've got to teach you in this video. The next one I've got to show you I have genuinely never seen mentioned before on YouTube. So will this mystery mechanic still work in Skill Gap's trading tool? Well, you're just going to have to wait 10 more seconds till after the video intro to find that one out.
My name's Rogue and I played League of Legends professionally for 7 years. Now I'm a full-time content creator and coach for all ranks Iron through to Challenger. So if you want more information of what a coaching session with me will look like, you can find more information by following the link in the video description below.
When trying to flash ult on a Malzahar, your combo probably looks a little bit like this. But this is bad, and it leaves room for your opponent to counterplay. Instead, you should be doing your combo like this. This second example is making use of a little known mechanic that I'm going to refer to as targeted input buffering. When using a point and click ability, like Malzahar's ult or Annie's Q, you can buffer its cast to go off instantly after flashing just like people do with skill shots. First, try to cast the ability on your opponent while outside of the ability's max range. This will queue up the ability that you want to use. Then flash into range of your target and the ability will instantly cast the moment your flash finishes. This makes the combo take less inputs from you and cuts out the entire possibility of counterplay that your opponent has, since they can't react to an ability that is queued up to cast automatically that has been paired with flash, an ability that casts instantly. Malzahar Ultimate is by far the best example in the entire game for when you need to make use of this mechanic. But there are a ton of other champions who can make use of this trick, with most champions in the game having a single target ability that can benefit from being buffered with flash in this way. One of my favorites is simply Alistar, who can buffer the input of his headbutt with his flash in order to pull off a flash combo faster. I wanted to try and test this out in Skill Gap to see if they've implemented such a specific mechanic that not many people know about. They've done an amazing job implementing the much more commonly known flash buffering on skill shot abilities, even for niche interactions like the one when you flash while using an Ezreal ultimate. But at the moment, they don't have a single targeted ability in their training tool. But that's okay, because targeted input buffering doesn't just work on spells, it works on attacks as well. The most useful example of this is when playing Leona. On Leona, your Q stun duration matches the cast time of your ultimate, meaning if you hit your Q and immediately use R, the two abilities will chain their stuns together perfectly for no room in between where your opponent can escape. Therefore, on Leona, one of the most powerful combos to do to guarantee crowd control is to flash Q your opponent and then instantly ult. But look at what can sometimes happen when I do this if my opponent reacts quick enough to my flash. Instead, activate Leona's Q, then right click your opponent to queue up the auto attack. If you then flash into range, your auto attack will automatically be used without you having to right click your opponent, instantly stunning them with your Leona Q and setting up for that combo we talked about. This is incredibly important to do for those situations where your lane opponent is just one auto attack away from death and you're both playing a game of flash chicken. If you flash first and then try to click on your opponent to auto attack them, they can sometimes react in time, match your flash, and live. But if you input the auto attack first, then flash, the auto attack will always go through, and your opponent will literally never be able to reaction flash in time. Now for the real test. Can I use auto attack input buffering with my flash on skill gapped? Does it work? Did they think to add that? Let's see. So here comes a minion, right click, flash. No, it doesn't work. No auto attack. I'm not too surprised about this. To be honest, not many people know that exists. Very niche. Not even a lot of pro players would know that exists. So I'm not too surprised it's not something they've added. Hopefully they'll see this and add it into the future. So get to work, guys. But as for other things, it's doing really well. If you look at the common ability flash with a Q flash, perfect, goes out just as you'd expect it to. And that's another really cool one, which I want to test on skill gapped. Does it work exactly the same way as it does in game? The ability to buffer skill shot abilities with flash is pretty common knowledge, but the cool trick not as many people would know about is that using flash you can change entirely the direction in which your ability was cast. Flashing to the side can help you throw skill shots around an enemy who is blocking, and flashing over your mouse can cause an ability to begin casting forward but end up shooting backwards, which can really catch an enemy off guard sometimes. And yes, of course, on Skill Gapped they nailed this mechanic as well with their training tool. They really have emulated League and its mechanics perfectly. I just really had to find the single most obscure and niche trick possible when showcasing that auto attack buffer in order to poke holes in their otherwise perfect training tool. Next up, I want to run through all the need to know settings and tips when it comes to practicing your kiting. When you're kiting, you should always be using attack move. Take note that while kiting, I make half an effort to get my mouse towards the target I'm aiming for, but ultimately I'm just using attack move on the floor, which is reducing the distance that I need to move my mouse overall when kiting. You can even use attack move backwards sometimes when running away. If there's just one target in range that you can possibly hit, it doesn't really matter anymore, which saves you a ton of effort in your wrist. The other must-have setting to go alongside this though is attack move on cursor. Normally, if you attack move the ground, your character will attack the closest enemy to your champion. This setting changes it so that it will instead attack the closest enemy to your cursor, which is much more likely the target that you were actually aiming for. What's great though is that you can import the key bindings from League into the Skill Gap app with just a few clicks, which will save you having to redo everything. One of the best features that there is that will help you practice your kiting is this progress bar they have that tells you exactly how long you need to wait between auto attacks and how long your auto attack windup animation takes. On the far left is where you start an auto attack animation. If you try to move too quickly before the bar reaches the green section, the auto attack will cancel. Once the progress bar makes it to the green section though, you can again begin to move as your auto attack has finished firing. There's even an indicator that tells you at what point you started moving again. So in an ideal world, that indicator would land as far to the left side of the green section as what is possible. And then of course, when the progress bar makes it all the way to the end, that means your next auto attack is ready to be used and you can start all over again. On the app itself, there are, not even kidding, 8 different training tools for kiting and spacing that you can take advantage of. These are great when practicing new settings, especially when it comes to helping you move off of locked camera. But to be honest, as much as they push this application as a tool to help you practice your micro skills, which it does really well, to be honest, I find it more fun to be played as a mini game in its own right. My favorite thing to do is just to crank the difficulty to the absolute max and have a mental breakdown trying to process what the hell is going on my screen right now. My 2 favorite game modes to do this in are the aim game mode, where you just have to hit skill shots on these little Mario Kart looking dudes, or Shootvival, which is the ultimate test of mechanics. No rules, here you are, all of your abilities, and all you have to do is dodge like a maniac and shoot everything that comes near you. And best of all, these 2 game modes are completely free to play, forever, as part of the free to play version. The free version of the app is already enough for you to practice everything that I've shown you in this video, or to just use as a tool to warm up with while you're in queue for your next game. If you want to check it out, the link to download Skill Gap is in the video description below. But otherwise, as always everyone, have a great day.